The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
There's a famous story about this happened also not such a long time ago in Brooklyn. I think it was in Brooklyn where two chavruses from a certain community, amazing friends. I'll give you the shortened version. They were amazing friends. They learned together. They grew up together. They did business together. They're two successful business people who are unbelievably close. They learned every day together for a couple hours in the morning. And one morning, Shimon doesn't show up, and Reuven's wondering where's Shimon, and Shimon calls and says, I got some bad news from the doctor. I'm diagnosed, stage 3, stage 4, Achman al-Tzan, we should never know from this stuff. And Reuven says, Shimon, we're going to beat this, don't worry about it. He mobilized Gant Klal Yisrael. Certainly every Jew in his area was mobilized to daven and to learn and to Tillim and you name it. Tzedakah, you name it. He mobilized so much in order to help this Shimon. And 6 months or a year later, Shimon passed away. Reuven was devastated. They could not fathom all the prayers and all of the tears and all of the emotion. How could it be? How could it be? And he found out 25 years later. 25 years later, when he had a daughter who was right at this point probably in her mid-20s, and I guess in certain parts early 25, in certain areas of the Jewish community, that's already getting old. And you start worrying, oh my gosh, is my daughter going to find a shidduch? And it was not so easy for her, because every time she went out, she was an amazing girl with all types of every quality you can have. But nobody seemed to be right for her. And the father was getting nervous, the mother was getting nervous, and they get a call about some guy from Florida who's coming to New York. No, we don't do Florida. We want a local boy. But this is a great guy. You got to go out. She's got to go out with this guy. She goes out with the guy, and they're sitting and schmoozing, and they connect like nobody's business. She sees this guy as being very special. The first date, and they're in the car and they're schmoozing, and he says, do you have anything like a special story about your life? She says, no, not really. What about you? He says, yeah, well, I shouldn't be here. I should not be here, says this boy to this girl. I'm a miracle baby. Because my father was he was a healthy man in Florida, and one day he goes into a deep coma, and his whole body breaks down, and there's some kind of infection, who knows what, and the doctor said, no hope for this guy, no hope. And they called the mother, they called my mother to come to the hospital because my father was going to die. They had no way of explaining how in the world he can survive another day. And my mother comes rushing to the hospital to say goodbye to my father. And sure enough, by the time she gets to the hospital, my father's eyes are open. He's fine. The fever broke. And to this day, it's recorded in this hospital that this is an inexplicable medical event. This person being able to walk out of a hospital is a miracle that cannot be explained. And then I was born. I was born after this miracle. And we went to a mekubal. My parents went to Eretz Yisrael. They went to a mekubal to find out what happened, why did this miracle occur, that my father got better. No, the mekubal said, I know why, nothing to do with you. And you'll understand one day why you got better. And sure enough, all the years went by, 25 years went by, here I am. Who knows, maybe a little bit more, whatever, and here I am with you. And yes, I have an amazing story because I should not be here. Because my father's recovery cannot be explained. And she says, what's your father's name? Father's name is Shimon. Shimon ben what? Shimon ben Yisrael. Your father is Shimon ben Yisrael? And what hit her is the fact that very same time, when her father, Reuven, was praying for Shimon ben Yisrael in Brooklyn, those prayers went to save Shimon ben Yisrael. And what happened to that Shimon ben Yisrael in Florida? He gets better, has a son who connects, and ultimately that night, I'm not a fan of one-night engagements, but they got engaged that night. They went inside the house, they told the parents the story. The father knew this was a miracle. They drank a l'chaim, and the rest is history. Rabbi said, we pray, and sometimes we don't really understand what's happening. Our prayers never go unanswered. Our prayers are always received. How they ultimately manifest, that's up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But no prayer goes unanswered.
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. StoriesToInspire.org